This creepypasta is called Choke.exe. Well, I'm not sure where to start. The past few weeks have been pretty rough for me. I lost my mom last spring to cancer. It caused a great deal of grief among my family. However, my father took it the worst. He was never the same after mom's death. He locked himself in his house, all alone, spacing himself from the rest of the world, spacing himself from me. It was odd. Throughout his entire life, he always been so outgoing. My mother, my sister, and I were all that he had. Now that my older sister had grown up, married, and moved a few towns over, I guess I was all he had now. 2 weeks ago, I received a call. I was on 4chan, an infamous board site, reading comments on one of those you laugh you lose threads. Ugh, whatever happened to ritual content? Alright, straying away from the current topic. Having been in front of my monitor for hours in dead silence, I've been caught off guard when my ringtone, Joey Scarberry's Believe It or Not, blared from my phone's tiny yet powerful speakers. I nearly jumped out of my seat. I grabbed my phone and checked the caller ID. It was a local hospital, calling to tell me that my father had killed himself. A week later, my sister came down for the funeral. It was nice to see her again after all these years, even if it was under harsh circumstances. She didn't bring that douchebag of a husband with her either. We shared a few hugs, talked about the deceased for a while, and then she was on her way. His house and all of his contents were given to me. Needless to say, it was a nice step up from my one-bedroom apartment. I decided to go snooping around in my new place the following day, maybe clean it up a bit. Honestly, I had no clue what I'd find in there. For all I knew, he lost all sense of modesty following the death of my mother. I half expected to see shit smeared all over the walls, along with wrecked furniture. I was at the front door, and upon grabbing the doorknob, a feeling of dread overcame my body instantly. I froze up. The idea of being in the same room that my father had hung himself, it didn't sit well with me. I shook my head and swallowed my disturbed feelings. I took a deep breath, preparing myself, then closed my eyes and opened the door. The front door led me into a hallway that split into two directions. In front of me was a door leading to the bathroom. To the right was the living room. Expecting the worst, I turned the corner. To my surprise, everything was in pristine condition. I had scanned the area, and there were a few couches surrounding an ancient-looking television set. My father had never been all that tech-savvy. What caught my eye, though, was the large fireplace near the seating. I didn't remember this. Granted, I'd only been in the house a handful of times, but from my recollection, it hadn't been there before. Now, the fireplace isn't exactly what caught my attention. It was what was mounted above it. It was a large, framed, painted portrait of my mother, surrounded with the candles on the fireplace mantel. Something just seemed a bit off. She had a condescending smirk on her face, as if to say, "I know something that you don't." Again came that eerie feeling. I really felt as if I wasn't supposed to be in this house. Being the dumbass I am, I decided to stick around for a while longer. Venturing into the kitchen, I snooped around. Cupboards were filled with new-looking dish sets, and the fridge was filled with nothing but beer and water. Good old Dad. A thought crossed my mind. I should check out the master bedroom, the room where he hung himself. I pushed back any unsure feelings I had, and started heading towards the back of the house. The door to my father's room was slightly open, knots in my stomach growing ever so tight. I slowly pushed it ajar. The hinges let forth an obnoxiously loud creak. I had no idea why I was being so quiet. I tried hard to convince myself that I was the only person inside the house. The butterflies in my stomach refused to go away. The master bedroom was normal. Everything looked clear. I took a few steps while scanning the area. There was a nightstand to the right of his bed, his glasses resting atop, seemingly untouched. He never liked wearing them, said to make him look like a sissy boy. To the left of the room was a door. Something, I don't know what, drew me to it. I wanted to open it. No, I needed to open it. Making my way over to this mysterious door, I made sure to be quiet. Again, don't ask me why. I just felt like I'd be disturbing something if I made noise. I bit my lower lip, placing my hand on the knob. I was trembling in anticipation. I closed my eyes, counted down from 3, and quickly opened the closet. Coats. Lots of coats, some pants, and shoes too. If that's what you're into, it was a ordinary walk-in closet. I took a sigh, relieved, but secretly disappointed, until I saw it. Something shiny on the floor. Kneeling down, I moved a few shoe boxes out of the way. It was a brass handle, bolted to the ground. I also noticed a crease in the carpeted floor. It was a small hatch, leading into the basement. My heart raced. What could be down there? My lust for adventure got the better of me. Without thinking, I grabbed the brass handle and flung the hatch open. I peered inside, and it was dark. All of my instincts went against what I was about to do, but I completely ignored them. I jumped down. Luckily, it wasn't that high of a drop. I'd be able to pull myself out if need be. The basement was dark and extremely dusty. Fishing into my pocket, I pulled out my Zippo lighter. It took me a few tries, but I finally managed to get a steady flame to light up a small portion of the room. That's when I saw the last thing I never expected to see in my father's basement. A computer. Sitting at the edge of the room was a small desk. Keyboard, mouse, and monitor. One of those white plastic chairs was pushed into the desk. Curiously, I walked over to the station. The computer looked new, as if it had never been used. This couldn't be my father's. Why would he have a nice rig like this sitting in the basement? I pulled the flimsy chair from the desk and took a seat in front of the monitor. I crossed my fingers, leaned over, and tried booting up the computer. Eureka. It worked. The Windows 7 boot logo appeared on the screen. Again, it struck me as odd that my father owned such a nice, expensive-looking computer. It required me to select a user, and there was only one. Disappointment. A chill went down my spine. Disappointment? Why would he name his profile that? I clicked it and it asked me for a password. I grinned and typed in Cheyenne, my mother's name, and I'll be damned, it worked. I cocked my head to the side. Something was wrong. His desktop background was solid black. There was no start bar, and there was only one icon. In the middle of the screen was a single executable file. Choke.exe. My hands trembled. I had no idea what was going on here, or why I come here in the first place. I wanted to turn around and get back to the comfort of my apartment, but curiosity wouldn't let me. I couldn't control myself. Almost against my will, I hovered the cursor over the icon and double-clicked. The screen flickered. I figured there was something wrong with the cord. I reached my hand behind the machine, feeling for wires. Impossible. Nothing was plugged in. The computer emitted a high-pitched buzz, almost as if it were working itself too hard. Shades of blue, red, and green flashed on and off across the monitor. The computer's whining became louder and louder, sputtering with life, increasing with the intensity with every second. All of a sudden, everything became quiet again. I looked at the screen. There was a red dot in the very middle of the text underneath, simply stating, disappointment. My heart was pounding in my chest. Everything had come to a standstill. I relaxed for what seemed like a few seconds until I heard it. The sound of heavy breathing, and footsteps behind me, coming closer. I didn't dare shift my gaze from the computer monitor. The footsteps stopped, however, or whatever was behind me had leaned over. Their mouth was right next to my ear. I heard a familiar voice whisper, "Choke." With a great force, a rope was wrapped around my neck. I screamed as loud as I could. The rope tightened and I was yanked backwards out of my chair. I couldn't breathe. My neck was sore. My vision slowly started to fade away due to the lack of oxygen. I was going to die. I gagged and clawed at my neck. There was nothing there. I was on my hands and knees gasping for air. My vision had returned. I stood up and staggered around, trying to regain my bearings. I was in the living room, right in front of the fireplace. Looking down on me was that condescending smirk, was the portrait of my mother. Present day. As I sit here writing this in my dingy one-bedroom apartment, I can honestly say that there is no place like home. I have no idea what the hell happened, and honestly, I don't want to know. All I'm sure of it is that I'm never setting foot in that house again.